tell me more about what it took to become a practice owner. Like how did you do it? What inside of you snapped for you to say, I'm going to do it?
Well, Bonnie, I kept getting canned.
Welcome back to the Veterinary Insider Podcast, the podcast for veterinary business owners helping animals get the care they need by saving time and money on business practices. I'm your host, Dr. Bonnie Bragdon. Today, we have Dr. Bill Tancredi from Old Ridge Veterinary Hospital near Philly, and he is going to talk to us about the importance of mental health and how that all is wrapped up in artificial intelligence and the benefits of owning your own practice. Today's podcast is powered by the Independent Veterinary Practitioners Association. Check our benefits out at iveterinarians.org. Well, hello, Dr. Tancredi. Thank you so much for joining us today. I just want to make sure you get your props for being a veterinarian. We'll switch over to the informal now. And so welcome, Bill. We're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm honored to be a part of it. I've been long a fan of the IVPA, so I'm happy to be here.
Well, wonderful. So we're actually going to have a conversation with you about a couple of topics just to help our listeners orient themselves. We're going to talk to you about your expertise in artificial intelligence. We're going to talk to you about becoming a practice owner. And I know you're very opinionated, so I'm looking forward to hearing your opinions.
I don't hide that very well.
No, but isn't that what veterinarians are all about? veterinarians are transparent generally and share their opinion.
I like to say that, I'm only useful if I'm candid, and, sugarcoating it doesn't get us very far. So
Nice.
That comes very naturally to me. So that's good.
Good deal. Good deal. So, I really actually want to start with something that I hope you're really candid about. And that is, what's your opinion about the corporatization of veterinary medicine? Like, lay it on us. What do you think about all these corporates, buying practices, taking away our legacy? Can tell a little bit. I'm biased.
I'm biased too. I'm not a huge fan. I've worked for some of these corporations, and I don't think they treated doctors very well. I don't think they treated staff very well. I think they are starting to learn that the industry is small, and if you don't treat doctors very well and you don't treat staff very well, that it's hard to find them because people talk. And if everybody has a bad story about a certain corporation, it's much harder to recruit for that corporation. So that's a good thing. I do think, I'm not a fan of the corporatization. I understand why it's happening. I understand that it is right for some people to work there. I try not to begrudge them that. It's not right for me, and I'm much happier as an independent vet and a practice owner than I ever was as an employee or as a corporate minion.
So for veterinarians and even maybe students or even if some pet owners have found their way to this podcast, so what was frustrating or difficult about working for a corporate practice? What gave you hesitation?
I think the gap between the decision makers and the people on the ground. And I think if you're going to hire a bunch of highly trained, highly skilled people like veterinarians and technicians, and you're going to entrust them with things like medicine and surgery, but not with things like hiring and firing and, client management, that kind of thing. I think you end up with this disconnect causes a lot of problems. And I think it's more often in the management than it is in the medicine. And what do I know about management? Maybe I'm terrible at it, but, I think the corporate attitude that, we should operate like a Starbucks and everybody should be happy and everybody should get what they want and everybody should understand everything perfectly. It's a little too much to ask of medicine. And, I can't guarantee a happy outcome all the time. And I can't get, a good outcome all the time. And I think making veterinarians responsible for not just medicine, but client happiness is kind of unfair.
So tell me more about this idea of veterinarians and their relationship to client happiness, right? So how is your relationship with client happiness? What was it like at a corporate versus what you do in your own practice now?
in my practice, I tend to be fairly intolerant of people who are rude or nasty or determined to be unhappy. We make a good effort to connect with people, and if you're not interested in having a happy outcome, then I can't really help you, and I'd encourage you to go somewhere else. And I don't mind that, right? Like, there's a lot of different veterinarians. We're all different. We all have our own character flaws and quirks and personalities and strengths and weaknesses and all these things. And it's important for vets or for clients to find the vet for them, in my opinion. And I'm not the vet for everybody. And respectfully, neither are you, right? Like, you got to find, and that's okay that happens. And it's like, oh, we lost a long-time client. It's like, well, their favorite vet retired and I'm here now and they don't like me that much. So change happens. And I think corporations tend to freak out about those things. And middle managers love to freak out about those things. And that's a natural process, and that's an okay process, and that is going to make everybody at the clinic and the client happier if we let that happen.
I actually love that attitude because, really what I hear continuously is the way that independent practices compete is by offering a unique client experience. A unique client experience means it's going to serve a certain clientele and not others. And so for me, I don't want to go in and spend hours and hours. Actually, my best way of getting care is I drop my dog off. Don't make me stand there. Give me the pills as I walk out the door.
Right. And that attitude is going to be perfect at some clinics and terrible at others. And that's okay. Like, not everybody has to fit in everywhere. And I think, private equity firms and corporatization and everything, they like interchangeable parts. And I don't think we really are. Like, the skills are transferable, but the personality and the communication and the management and all the things that make vet, give it the flavor and the fun and the interest.
That's perfect. I think that that's such an important point to make for veterinarians who maybe are struggling with burnout or attrition or really considering leaving the profession, because when you own your practice, you own your medicine, you own your clientele. So how do you interact with a new client? Like, how do you communicate to clients what your practice is about and how you take care of it? So you make sure you get clients that are right for you.
I think, it's a fairly small community, so that helps. I have some rather colorful responses to negative reviews on our Google page that I'm sure every media and marketing management person would cringe to read. But they work for us. And it's, we get people who expect that, they'll be treated with respect. When I get a new client, I'm happy to see them. Like, they're coming to me with their animal. Like, I'm genuinely happy about that. That's, these people are my neighbors and often my friends. So that's like, it's flattering. It's an honor to do that kind of thing. And I think a lot of people in vet and med, I think there's too many people who don't like their jobs. But I also think most of them like their work. And find a different job, and I mean this, the expectation that you have to fit in everywhere is nuts. I've been a terrible employee. I think I'm a pretty decent practice owner. Like, you can be yourself, and like, I think to be your authentic self, you have to know what that is, and you have to be unashamed of it.
So, Bill, how did you get so comfortable with conflict? That wasn't easy for me. How did you get to where you are?
My family, my household, my everything, everybody's kind of loud and in your face, Irish and Italian, and they're all, conflict was sort of par for the course. So I grew up that way. That helps. And that, I know not everybody's like that, but I would certainly encourage everyone in vet med who has trouble with whatever, like find a therapist, find a psychologist, a psychiatrist to help you deal with it. Like mental health is a major problem in this profession, and just working more hours and trying harder is not the way to get better. Like if you want to really be your best self, and I said this to a dear friend of mine when she was opening her practice, is that the best thing you can do for the leadership of your practice is take care of your own mental health. And you don't have to be on the verge of burnout to go get help. You don't have to be in a hospital bed to think like, oh, maybe I should start working out. Like, you could go to the gym when you're still healthy and might actually keep you out of the hospital. I think the same thing about mental health support. So, if you want to lift these heavy things, you got to get stronger. And maybe you don't have to get stronger. Maybe you just need to learn the techniques to lift it right and not hurt yourself. And, I'm a gym rat at heart. Maybe I use too many sports analogies, but I think it's just the same. Like you want to get better at something, practice. You want to learn how to get better at something and you don't know how, find an expert. So, taking care of your mental health is just like if you're not good with conflict, or if you're too eager for conflict, if you're, overly anxious, or you don't take it seriously enough. Like presumably none of us are perfect. I'm certainly not. I've got plenty of character flaws. You can ask anybody. There's some Google reviews about it too. But, I'm just like anybody who'll tell you that when they started working out, they were a happier, healthier person. I think if you find a therapist or whatever mental health support you need, that works for you, and it's not the same for everybody, you'll be better off for it.
I love that analogy though, right? You start out with something that you need to get better at. It's no judgment, right? We all need to work out. We need to have fitness, whether it's physical or mental. There's no shame in that. And if you go to a trainer / therapist, somebody who can teach you skills, help hold you accountable, bring you forward. I mean, I think that's a great analogy for, like you said, is it building a new skill set or experimenting or taking care of yourself or a number of those things, because life is a contact sport, and
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's dynamic. Like what's the case today might not be the case in 2 weeks, in 2 months, in 2 years. Like, I was really doing pretty well, and then something knocked me sideways. It's like, yeah, life happens. You should, take care of yourself.
So I have to ask, Bill, I really have to ask this. So what is your best favorite Google review? Can you share that with us?
So one of my clients is a member of my favorite professional sports team, and he left a review. He left a good review, and it looks completely benign. Like unless you followed sports fairly closely, you wouldn't be able to pick it out. But that one was pretty cool. We have a lot of nice ones. And I don't want to diminish any of the others, but seeing that one was that was pretty cool. Like that was, from somebody who is somebody like I would have looked up to, like, oh man, that guy's awesome. Like, that was cool.
Very, very good. That's awesome. So tell me more about, before we get into artificial intelligence, your favorite topic and my least favorite topic. Just want to state that now. So tell me more about what it took to become a practice owner. Like how did you do it? What made you, what inside of you snapped for you to say, I'm going to do it?
Well, Bonnie, I kept getting canned. No, I said I was a bad employee, but I just started a job I really liked with people I still admire. And in January or so of 2020, and my 90-day probation period was up right in the middle of the COVID shutdown. And I think I saw in the month of April, I think I saw 9 clients. And they were like, Bill, you're great. We think you're terrific, but we can't afford you. We have to let you go. I'm like, yep, I can tell. There's no one here. And they were kind. They were and I wasn't really doing anything. And, I was trying to start this practice, and I ran into one of my clients who I had a bunch of people, and it turned out I had a bunch of friends in common with, and I ran into her at the running store, and I said, I need to start this practice. I need everybody to have W-2s. And she's like, I-9s. And I said something about using this payroll company. And she's like, oh, don't use them. They're terrible and very expensive. And I said something else, and she was like, mm-mm. And she was like, do you need some help? I was like, yeah, apparently. And one thing led to another, and we got married last fall.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. And, but, the process is going to look different for everybody. Like my playbook 4 or 5 years ago is not going to be the same as opening a practice today. I rented a building. I didn't buy one. I didn't, interest rates were different. I had this amount of money down, not that amount of money down. But I think it's accessible. I don't think it's it seems like a mysterious process. And I happened to run into somebody who knew all about, human resources and management and that kind of stuff. But, the resources are out there. Like you don't have to meet your future wife at the running store to get somebody who knows about this kind of stuff. There's all kinds of resources. The IVPA has stuff. The AVMA has stuff. AHA has stuff. And it's, we're veterinarians. Like we've learned to do surgeries off of YouTube videos, for Pete's sake. Like you can learn how to navigate the process of applying for a loan. So
it drives me crazy. Yes.
Yeah, it's really not that hard. Like it seems like this big mysterious process. Like anybody listening to it, if you want my business plan and playbook, I'll send it to you. No charge. It's a little dated, but I'll send it to you today. No problem. Here's a copy. Good luck. If you have any questions, I'll point you in the right direction. If I had to give any advice, I think the thing that kept me going was just do one thing for the practice every day. Like, don't let it sit there. Don't let the idea stagnate. Like, just do at least one thing every day to get that practice opened. And you end up doing more than one, right? Like, we can't stop. But that was kind of just do something. Like, if you feel like you don't know what to do, like, send an email, ask a question, do something, get moving.
So it sounds like you're also very comfortable with ambiguity and dealing with the unknown. Tell me, is that true? Tell me more.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. We don't really know what's going to happen. That's everyday life, right? Like, could end tomorrow. You gotta, accept the unpredictability and the mortality and all those things. And I think my life is more vibrant for doing so. I think the ambiguity and the unpredictability, I think my lovely wife would mind a little less vibrancy in that respect. But, we really don't know what's going to happen. You can't, that's what makes life interesting and fun.
So what advice would you have for, veterinarians? If we think about veterinarians and, we're trained to be successful at school, right? That's how we get into vet school.
Yeah, that's well said.
Right?
Yeah, I like that.
Right? So there's always a right answer when you're in school. There never is in life. So, some of us are trained to be perfectionists where there is a right answer and everything is known, and that's kind of how you lived your life for 20, 30 years. So are you naturally comfortable with this, or is this something you had to learn?
Probably too comfortable with this. So, this isn't what we were going to talk about, but I'm very significantly, severely ADHD. So I'm very bad at, planning an organization. So through entirely my own fault, my life is often disorganized and unpredictable, and you just have to survive. So you learn to deal with that sort of thing. But I don't, And again, my path and my character flaws and learning disabilities and everything, like you learn to navigate your own, and you learn to deal with it. And you know, it's not about the finish line. It's about you know all the things we do along the way. And building a practice, to any listener who's going to build a practice, like maybe it's right for you and maybe it's not. And both of things are okay. And opening a practice or not opening a practice, both things are okay. And if you open a practice that's bigger and shinier and more successful than mine, I'm really happy for you if that's what you want. Like if that's what you set out to do, God bless. If not, well then maybe we can help.
So are you one of those people that has a clear thought around what success looks like for you, or are you more kind of satisfied with just how things build on their own?
I think it's different for different things, right? Like success in a pyometra surgery looks very different than success in, uh, you know, being a dad, right? Like success in treating a, you know, upper respiratory infection looks completely different than success in, coaching an 11-year-old soccer team. Like these are, and I think as vets, we often want clear outcomes in real life, where in medicine, it's like, well, sometimes, in medicine, we might have a very clear outcome. And in the real world, it's like we have a lot less data here. We have a lot less clear outcome. We have nobody's published a study on what, a happy and successful life looks like. So, I don't know. I think, it's a different kind of thinking that gets us successful outcomes in medicine than successful outcomes in other things.
Yeah, I love what you had to say about that, because, what made us successful getting into school, some of those habits and some of those characteristics or skill sets that we learned don't always make us successful when we get out.
I agree completely. I mean, the skill sets that they select for in veterinary students are different than the skill sets you hire for in veterinarians. And that gap is getting kind of big these days. And I think it's hard on people when you get into vet med and you think like, okay, study hard and you'll be fine. It's like, really, you have to spend a lot of time learning to communicate, and a lot of time learning to listen, and a lot of time learning to speak, and a lot of time learning to, operate in a dynamic organization. My hospital is very different than the one from which I graduated, the school from which I graduated. And the good news for me was that I was only a vet student for a short period of time, because I was also pretty bad at that. And, the rest of my life is, doing the job, and I really like the work. And if you loved vet school and you hate the work, it's like, well, that's good. The only good news is there's a lot of ways to be a veterinarian.
Right.
Like there's other things you can do.
Right. I love that. There's a lot of ways to be a veterinarian.
Yeah.
I actually love that.
It's true. There's all kinds of stuff we can do.
So how did you transition from school, to practice? Like what tips would you have for students who are probably listening to us and, wringing their hands and thinking, oh my God, things are even worse than I thought. So how can they transition?
I liked it a lot better. I like practice a lot better, because one of the things that was hard for me in school was, when you were on different services, you didn't get to finish with a case, right? Like you only had a small part of a case, and we didn't get to go wire to wire very often. And that's a bummer. Like you don't see the outcome, you don't talk to the client, you don't, you just worry about the medicine, which is what they're teaching you, and that's fantastic. But, boy, it's a lot of fun to like go end to end and get a case and work up a case and, fix an animal and help somebody, and, you've solved a problem for someone. Like that's really rewarding and really fulfilling. So, being able to help 10 or 20 or 30 people a day with their pets is a pretty good feeling if you let it be.
So I have to admit, I want your advice on this, because when I was in practice, so I practiced about 10 years, and then I decided I wanted to be another kind of veterinarian. So I think what got to me is I was so addicted to that hero feeling. Right? Yeah, you know where I'm going. I felt really down when I couldn't fix something. So how do you handle that when you can't be the hero and you can't fix something?
Probably not well, to be honest. No, I think it. Yeah, I try to allow it to motivate me to get better and to do things and to learn more and be smarter and be more skilled and uh, find a way to help someone, even when you can't. Like I don't have the skill or the knowledge to help them. Like maybe that's finding them a referral. Maybe that's helping them say goodbye. Maybe that's something. But just because we can't do like what we set out to do, like I cannot cure this disease, there's often something else we can do to help people. And even if it's just give comfort to that person, sometimes that's all there is.
So where do you practice? Where's your practice located? Remind me.
About 25 miles west of Philadelphia. So we're pretty suburban, but
Okay, suburban practice, solo practice. You still alone, or?
for the most part, I have some specialists who come by to help me out with orthopedics and ultrasounds and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's mostly just me.
So how do you find time to learn more and keep your skills current and learn new techniques and things like that?
I think it's actually a lot easier as a practice owner because I can, if I have a half hour break, I can watch a webinar and I can crack it. I mean, like, I think you can, see textbooks on that's the new copy of my new copy of Ettinger. I'm really excited about that. I'm kind of a junkie for it. Like just that rush of learning new things and finding new things. Like there's a copy of JAVMA on my desk. There's, lots of ways to learn things and consuming that information any way you can, like the way that works for you. I just do it in the ways that work for me. And, every little bit makes you better. Every little bit just makes you, if you can get 1% better, like, man, that's pretty cool.
What I really enjoyed about being a practice owner was if I had a case come in that I could actually, maybe offer them a discount to stay with me. Like if they couldn't afford to have it treated.
Yeah, I did that this week.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I had a ruptured bladder in a cat that I did a brand new technique that I learned. This was before YouTube.
Right.
So I before YouTube, I learned it from a textbook, but the alternative was the cat was going to be euthanized. So because it couldn't go to a specialty practice, because I owned my practice, I could, choose to spend my resources, my time, the costs, the supplies, my team's time. I chose to treat that, and that was very, very rewarding.
Yeah, that's a great feeling, isn't it? Like, and not having to answer to somebody who wasn't there. Like if it had gone bad or something, like I'll get it through it. Like I think having the courage to do those things is what is really, I mean, like that, what you did took incredible guts, right? Like it took incredible courage to do that. And I think that's the great part about being, an independent vet or a practice owner is that you get to do stuff like that. Like you get to be courageous.
I love that. Well, one of my favorite corporate stories is when I worked for corporate. I had to go to medical review because a client opted to euthanize a rat with extensive mammary gland tumors. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
a $5 rat.
right. And the client's like, no, thank you. That's okay.
Yeah, no, I don't think I can afford $2,000 in surgery for, a pet rat that may not live much longer.
And I think never missing an opportunity to knock a corporation. But like, if you don't trust the doctors in the room, why'd you hire them in the first place? What are they doing here? Like, if you want robots and cookbook medicine, do it. But you hired these like highly trained, super smart, motivated people. Let them do their thing.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to switch topics just a minute here, Dr. Bill. So, all right, I'm going to share with you artificial intelligence. I hate it.
Your whole tone of voice is just like, come way down.
I know, it's like, So why should I be passionate? And I read a lot of your material with really keen interest. So what should I love about artificial intelligence and machine learning and all that good stuff?
You don't have to write medical records as much anymore. You will spend way less time writing medical records because that's super exciting. Nobody went to vet school to write medical records, and the AI-powered scribes are fantastic. I think that, like, easiest use case, that's the easiest use case for me. I think it also does a really good job at adjusting tone of emails and that sort of thing, which is really helpful when you've got, I talk to people. I'm really lucky I get to talk to people all over the world, and like, my East Coast demeanor isn't exactly good for all time zones. So it can kind of take the edge off and soften things. I think that's a good thing. Or if you have an opposite problem, and you're like, man, I really can't get my point across because I'm too soft spoken or I'm too easygoing. It's like it can help you, strengthen the language a little bit. And the point of all of this is that it helps us communicate. And one of the things that veterinarians think we're good at, and we're not, is communication. And we get very little training. We do these make-believe, role-playing things for 2 weeks, and then they're like, all right, you're fine. But that's a huge part of our job, and we get very little training in it. And this is a, $20 a month, super effective way of enhancing it. It's too much fun to pass up. If you've got a tough client email to write, if you've got a tough message to your practice manager, if you want a second perspective on an email that you received from a client, if you'd like to reword some of your spicier client reviews on Google, you can do that fairly easily. And I think it takes a lot of the emotional burden out of these things that we're not trained to do, and we didn't sign up to do. We don't really enjoy that kind of stuff. And I think that frees us up to be more of ourselves in other places, right? Like where they need us, right? Like in that cat surgery, like they needed the doctor, they needed the veterinarian, and they didn't want her to be thinking about, the scolding email to the practice manager, or how am I going to respond to a client review, or how am I going to answer my, corporate minion middle manager about why I did this surgery, right? Like they needed your whole heart, strength, and mind and focus on that surgery. And if we can use it to free up more of ourselves to do the things we want and we love and we enjoy, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, so you bring up a good point, and I think this is the second time you brought this up. This idea that, when you go to vet school, you don't think about the emotional work, right? So there's a lot of emotional work that is associated with being a healthcare provider, and we just don't think about that. We think about the clinical, the physical, the mental, but not the emotional aspects of it.
Right. And the emotional aspects are different for everyone, right? Like they're different in every role, they're different in every place, they're different for every person. And stuff that sets me off probably doesn't bother you, and stuff that bothers you, might, I might be able to take in stride. So, I think we need, like, we're not going to get the training we need in vet school, right? Like, they're not going to completely revamp to talk about these things. But I do think we should strongly encourage, mental health support for the professionals. And I think we should not just normalize it, but it's like, you don't do that. Okay, well, good luck. Like, it's hard. It is like, it's heavy. It's, you take a risk on a, cat with a ruptured bladder and that cat dies. It's like, that's going to weigh on you. And like, having someone help you through it is a good idea, if not an absolutely necessary one.
Well, I love that connection between artificial intelligence, right? So getting away from the mundane, even like you said, like so many emails or phone calls or voicemails just get you the wrong way. You're like, and then that just sets you off for the whole day.
Right. And that you only have so many like emotional lifts every day. And if you can save a couple for the clients or the family and friends who really need you to be there, that's a good thing. And the AI, like, it's boring. It's it's really exciting to me, but it takes away the boring stuff. Like, oh, it just wrote an email. Yeah, but it took an hour task and turned it into a 10-minute task. And now the other 50 minutes, I get to do what I want. I don't want the AI to be used to turn a doctor who sees 20 patients into a day to turn into a doctor who sees 30 patients a day. Unless maybe that's what the doctor wants. But maybe we can get 20 patients done a little bit quicker and I can go home and play soccer with my kid. That's what excites me. Not the, like, oh, it takes medical records, this is neat. It's like, yeah, it is neat. It's pretty cool. But the freedom it gives us to do less of the mundane, rote, repetitive tasks and do more of whatever we want to do, whether that's a cat surgery or work up a case or, comfort a client or go home to our family. That's what I want.
So I really see how, and if we tie it back to the idea of owning your own practice, I presume most corporate practices don't necessarily let you use the technology that you are most comfortable with. So that's another area of freedom, is you get to use your technology.
Yes, I get to, I think I have more, free trials and demos scheduled than anybody I know. But I like demoing that stuff. I like trying that stuff. I like seeing what people have built. I like builders. I like people who create stuff. And this is, it's a fun way to do it. Right now it's unregulated, which I think is good because we don't know enough about it. If we clamp it down and it's like, okay, now it's regulated, then we've really destroyed this like growing, evolving, exciting field, and limited it by what we understand today, right now. That's a way to kill innovation. And like we have all these veterinarians. They're smart, they're trained, they're certified, they've got their licenses and they've got their boards passed, and we trust them to do all kinds of things, but we don't trust them to use technology.
Yeah. And one of the worst things in the world is being stuck with a program you don't like using. Like, if you give me Gmail, I'm going to have a meltdown. There will be a temper tantrum, and I know lots of people love G Drive, but I can't handle it.
Right. Yeah. And like, you being able to pick the one that's right for you makes your life a lot better in small ways, but like throughout.
Yes. Yeah. So that's another way that as an independent owner, you get to choose your bells and whistles and toys and all that good stuff. One of the things I don't want to overlook, and I want to make sure we hit this, is I did read, in brief, one of your blogs about a study that came out from a physician side research group talking about how, artificial intelligence beats physicians or does better than physicians in
the one
certain...
on diagnosis.
Yes, tell me more about that study.
So that was in the New England Journal of Medicine. I don't remember the author, but I think it was in the last 12 months. And it didn't beat the physicians at diagnosis. It beat them at a list of 10 differentials. So that was a really important distinction, because a differential list isn't a diagnosis. But these were bizarre cases from the New England Journal of Medicine. And this is a specifically trained large language model, not like it wasn't a GPT. It wasn't it was specifically trained for this purpose. And it did a better job of including the final diagnosis on a list of the 10 differentials than the physicians did, which I think is fantastic, because now the physician is left to like, oh man, now I have this computer powered augmentation that we've tested and it's better than I am, but I still have to work up the case. I still have to get there. I still have to do the work and make the call. But man, it might make me a little bit better at getting there. Might get me there a little bit faster. And I don't know about you, but how often do you get past the 5th differential on your list?
So I'm going to share a story that I think this would have been helpful. So I was in practice, rural area. Dog came in with waxing, so middle of nowhere, Georgia, not Texas, not Alabama, not the Alabama coast. Rural practice. Dog comes in, waxing and waning, muscle loss. I try all these different medications. Of course, I try antibiotics and steroids. Dog gets better. Dog gets worse. Dog gets better. Dog gets worse. Spend as much as I could on diagnostics. And then I just so happened to pick up a journal from Dougie McIntyre, Dr. Dougie McIntyre from Alabama, who did this article. I'll be honest with you, I don't even remember the parasite anymore. But it was a parasitic infection from the dog eating a tick, not the tick feeding on the dog. So, and this one parasitic infection comes from like the coast of Alabama, the panhandle, not typically seen in my geographic area. If I'd never had the chance to pick up that journal, I would never have diagnosed that dog. So if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is artificial intelligence would have helped me get to that point a little better, a little faster.
Maybe. Probably. I'd like to think so. But I don't think, the LLMs as they are now aren't fantastic at the vet med stuff. But I think they're getting there. And there's some cool companies out there that are doing some cool things that are getting them there. I also think, that's exactly how to think about it. Like, it's not going to replace you. It's going to augment you. And synthesize the information so you can get to it quicker. And that's really exciting. Like, I like being, like you said, a good doctor. Like, you liked the rush of helping people and fixing things and doing all that kind of stuff. And that's very fulfilling and very rewarding. And it's what I love most about clinical practice, is like being able to help people. And this is why I practice in my hometown. Is like I get to help the people who are my neighbors, and I grew up here and everything. So this matters to me. And like I tell people that this is the first line of my obituary is what I do here. And so doing it well and doing it well for these people matters a lot.
Yeah, little secret about me that, of course, will not be a secret anymore, but I went through this team building exercise where you were supposed to list the top 3 things that you called yourself or names for yourself. I have to admit, the first one was veterinarian. Second was mom. Third was partner. So, being a veterinarian is like a calling. It doesn't make me a worse mom. It's who I am, and that'll never go away.
I completely understand, and I think it's why I think it is a wonderful thing about the profession. I think it creates a lot of problems in the profession. And you see these practice owners who can never walk away, and they refuse to sell their practice to their associate or their, these people to whom they promised to sell the practice. They practice well past the point of them being 100% mentally competent, like at times, and you hear some horror stories about that. And then it also makes it hard for people who are mentors to give up that hierarchy of these people who used to work for them and now go on to do other things. And I think we really need to make room for that stuff to happen if we're going to be the best version of ourselves.
Well, Bill, you've really brought a lot of points together that I find really fascinating, right? So when I think of artificial intelligence, I think of it as being very sterile and clinical, and it can be very emotionally triggering for me. That headline, the headline that the AI did better than a doctor, that's very threatening to
it
me.
is, right? Like it
Very
yeah, it
threatening, right?
riles, yeah.
Yeah, so I love how you've brought this all full circle. The idea that, the tools, the artificial intelligence that you're so familiar with are really just tools to give us more capacity, more skills to let us lead a better life.
Yeah, I think once upon a time, you only had textbooks, and you had to hope your textbooks were up, and then you had, online message boards where you could ask experts, and now I think you've got, better ways to do research. And just because my car is faster and safer and I can drive it at night doesn't mean it's worse. I'm not gonna like it. It doesn't have to take anything away from us if we don't let it. And I think if we are informed and aware and we take advantage of it and we learn to use it, we won't be clobbered by it.
All right. So as we finish up here today, I really want, as let's say a mature veterinarian, what advice would you have for veterinarians who maybe feel very disconnected from technology, who are very threatened by it? Like, what tip would you have for making sure they don't get outdated when it comes to technology?
Well, I know a really good Substack you could read. Or, or I would encourage everybody to go play with it. Like there's a free version of ChatGPT. There's a free version of Claude. Those are two of the really big, powerful mainline models. I think if you spend a couple days fiddling with it and learning about it and seeing what it can do and can't do, and just play and tinker and try stuff, you'll find a way it can help you. And if you're still disgusted by it, then that's fine. My bad. But I think for all these digital communications that we have that are the written word and all these things, like it's overwhelming. We read something like 150, 200 newspapers a day in terms of information. If there's a way that we can synthesize it and interact with those things a little better and a little more comfortably, I think we'll be better off for it. So my advice would be take a couple days and fiddle with it. Like commit to playing with it for 3 days.
Nice. And so what is your, I know you named a couple names, but just what is one single best entry level artificial intelligence or technology platform to just, like you said, play with?
I will mention two. If you like the images, play with ChatGPT, the image generator. It's about $20 a month. If you really like the language, Claude is excellent, and they have projects which are really neat. So I would do ChatGPT or Claude.
Nice. And so when you say images, what have you done fun with ChatGPT with images?
It can create images. It can take your text and create an image based on it. And all of the art on my Substack is AI generated. And I wouldn't know. I mean, I spay cats for a living. What do I know about artwork? But it's fun to see what pops out, and it's even more fun when it's wrong or it gets something funny. But fiddling with that stuff is kind of delightful, like to tinker and explore. Yeah.
Yeah, whimsical. Rather than arduous or difficult, it should be whimsical and fun.
Sure.
Nice.
Exactly.
And okay, so we've gotten some advice for veterinary students, right? When you come out of come out of school, just know lots of new skill sets you're going to have to learn.
I would just look for a fit that, a place that fits you, not the highest paying or in the place you want or this or that or the other. Like find a good hospital where you fit in and it's out there and start there.
Nice. All right. And then the last one, your tips for veterinarians who say practice ownership isn't for them. I mean, yes, we should allow that choice. That's fine. But what are those who are on the fence? Maybe not. What tips would you have for them?
If you're on the fence about it, start looking into it more and learning more. Because if you're not sure about something, get more information. And if you don't like the information you got, get a second opinion. If practice ownership, if independent practice absolutely isn't for you, I think that's a bummer, but it's right for you. It's not what's right for me. So don't let me, somebody you may or may not have even met, tell you what's right for you.
So you inspired one additional question here. So for those veterinarians who say, look, I'm never going to own, I want to be employed. How, you've had great experiences, even if they were bad, they're great. What's your advice for finding that right cultural fit in a practice?
Oh, and now we get to tie it back to mental health, because if you don't know yourself, it's really hard to figure out where you're going to fit in. So you have to take care of your mental health, and you have to know enough about yourself to know what works for you and what doesn't, and that's how you'll be able to know enough about a practice to know if you'll fit in.
Nice. One of my favorite things is to ask a veterinarian, what are your core values? I also like to give them cases. So I say, I had this happen, a case comes in on a Saturday at 2:00. They don't have money to go to the emergency room. What do you do? Right? And I think those stories and applying it to medical cases also gives you insight into what's deep down inside in that practice.
I think the one rule above all others is to always do the right thing. And there's not a lot of situations where it's actually all that fuzzy. So that case comes in at 1:00 on a Saturday, and you have to push your vacation a couple hours because you need to call your wife in to help you with that splenectomy. An entirely hypothetical story, mind you.
Entirely hypothetical.
Yeah. I've lost track of how many hypotheticals there's been. But you do it. You do the right thing. And you figure out everything else later. Everything else, the always learning, always growing, the dedication, the determination, all those things support. Always do the right thing.
Well, Dr. Tancredi, Bill, so glad to have you as a guest today. Is there anything that I should have asked that I didn't?
Not that I can think of, but it was, I know we meant to talk about a lot of very technical things, and we talked a lot of very philosophical things, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, I really appreciate your time today. And so, Bill, you have a very extensive blog with a lot more insight into artificial intelligence and the technical aspects of it with lots of great advice. So where can our listeners find that?
It's at Dr. Tank at Substack, or drtank.substack.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you reach out, I usually respond. I do my best to respond. But if you reach out, I'm happy to help. And if you want to find all that AI stuff, it's on Substack. And there's some reasonably entertaining inflammatory articles on there too about
a lot of really funny insights on your blog. So I would recommend that people subscribe and follow for the laugh.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
All right,
it's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much for your time today. And I'm sure we'll hear more from you.
I'm reliable about that sort of thing.